Hi, I'm Jason. This is Wine Chat, and we're here today with Adam Lee of Siduri. Adam, thanks for coming out to the show.
My pleasure.
Let's get right down to business. We've talked to some winemakers before, but what you do is a little different. You don't, to my knowledge anyway, own any vineyard land.
That's correct.
And what you do is source wine from how many different locations?
I don't even know, 22, 23, something like that.
Too many to keep track of, and from two states, California and Oregon.
Yep.
What are the advantages to not owning the land? What are the advantages to doing business the way you do it?
There are some real advantages. We've had a couple of years where maybe it's been a tougher vintage in Oregon than it has been in California, and so we have been able to declassify more of the Oregon stuff in that year into a lower priced wine. And then in California, it's been a better year. We put more of it into the single vineyard wine. In other years, it's the exact opposite. And so it's definitely played a role in kind of keeping the business stable, having a stable portfolio of wines. The other thing, though, that it's really important is we've learned to make wine from doing this. Diana and I came into this without any winemaking background. And so there have been years like 98 in California that was very cool, and it was a real challenging year for a lot of people. But compared to 95, 96, and 97 in Oregon, it was actually pretty warm. So having that experience in other places has been very, very helpful to us.
Now, you mentioned that you came into this with no real winemaking experience. How do you get into this? How did this all start for you?
Dumb luck is part of it, at least. I worked in wine retail for a while in Texas and briefly in wine wholesale, and I really sucked at that, so I got out of that pretty quickly and back into retail. But my real passion was in California to go out there and to be involved in the wine country in some ways. I met my wife, Diana, at a retail job in Dallas, Texas, and we decided to take our combined savings, which was $24,000, and move out to California. And since this will be seen by hundreds of thousands of people out there, I have to mention Diana had $21,000 out of the $24,000, and I only had $3,000. We moved out to California, made a little bit of wine, Pinot Noir, purely, we put an ad in a publication, decided let's take a chance, make a little bit of Pinot because that's what we love. We simply read from books on how to make the wine. We got very lucky that it was the 94 vintage, which was a great vintage, and we made 107 cases, 4.5 barrels worth. We thought the wine was good, but we weren't sure exactly how good it was. And one night we heard that the wine writer Robert Parker was in town and was tasting wines, and we got very drunk and drove a sample of our wine out of barrel over to Meadowood, where Parker was staying, left the sample with the concierge along with a handwritten note on it, and then woke up the next morning, had one of those, what did we do last night? And we're like, oh my God, we didn't really do that, did we? So we called the concierge, tried to get the sample back, but it was too late. He explained that Mr. Parker had gotten up early that morning, and we pretty much thought, we're screwed. This is horrible. We're going to get an awful rating. Our $24,000
You equivalently drunk dialed
yes,
Robert Parker. Okay.
Pretty much. About 3 weeks after that, we had a message on the answering machine from Parker saying that he tasted the wine, thought it was terrific, but he lost all the notes on it, and could we fax those to him, which we did. And about 7 weeks after that, the issue of the Wine Advocate came out, and he rated the wine in the 90s. Printed our phone number. It was actually our home phone number because we didn't have a business line set up yet, and people started calling early in the morning from the East Coast wanting to buy the wine.
Awesome. Yep. So how fast did that 107 cases sell out?
6 weeks.
So if you owe something to your success and where you are now to Robert Parker, how important at this point, this far into the game, are those ratings to you?
You know, it's not so much necessarily how important they are to us, but I think different consumers have aligned their palates sometimes with different wine writers, and I think that can be a good thing. You may say, my palate matches more Jim Laube from The Spectator than it does Robert Parker or some other Alan Meadows from Berghound. Those are things that are a good opening to people to try the wine. If you notice that, yeah, I like a lot of what Alan rates highly, then maybe the next time you see a nice rating of his, you should do that. For us, I mean, it definitely helps sell the wine, but we've discovered and decided that we need to make the wine that we really love, Diane and I. I mean, we're the only people you wake up with is yourself, and you need to make a wine that you feel proud of, that you really believe in.
Do you ever make a wine that you think is fantastic, and do you have certain expectations of critical acclaim, and then maybe I mean, are you ever disappointed? Do you ever get that, well, this should have been 2 points higher, and if it were, I'd sell more of it, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, our second year that we made wine, we made a Pinot Noir from the Hirsch vineyard that we still think is one of the top 20 or so wines that we made. That was back in '95. And we made an Oregon Pinot that we didn't think was quite as good, and we lowered the price on it about 70% compared to the other stuff. So it was a pretty decent deal, but we still thought the wine was okay. The Hirsch Pinot that we loved got an 87 from the Spectator, and the Oregon Pinot that we thought was just okay got a 91 from the Spectator. That was the year that we dawned on us that you're going to get things you don't deserve. You're going to get things that are better than you deserve and things that are worse than you deserve, and you just hope it evens out over time.
It all depends on what the critic had for breakfast, right?
It could be breakfast, and they get in a fight with their spouse that morning. Who knows?
Sure. Nothing gets a 90 today. So let me ask you this. Do you have any plans to own vineyard land in the future? Would you like to?
We looked at a piece of property a couple of years ago. We could plant maybe 5 acres on it. There was a little barn. We talked, and we're like, this seems like a decent deal. Talked to the next door neighbors. They said, you should probably check in that barn, see what was going on. Turned out that people were making meth in the barn and spread all the leftovers out in the land that we were going to plant for grapes. It was at that point in time that it dawned on us that we don't know enough about this crap probably to really go. I mean, who would have thought look for meth residue in the land?
That might void any kind of organic certification.
Yeah, I think
down
it
the
probably
line.
would. So no, at this point in time, we don't.
Fair enough. So how many? It was 20 plus vineyards.
Yep.
With that many different wines, what makes them all Siduri?
First and foremost, our goal has always been to express the place that the land comes from, the grapes come from, express the land. We spend a lot of time in the vineyards. We buy the grapes from these producers, the growers, by the acre rather than by the ton. So we have a contract for a set piece of land, and that allows us to work with them, decide farming, how much crop we want, how we want it farmed. That's a very important thing. The goal really on the wines, though, is to take the place. I mean, be it Santa Lucia down in Monterey tends to make bigger, richer Pinots, while Oregon tends to be a little higher acid, a little bit leaner. Take the place, do the best job with what's given to you, and really express that. We have customers who say, I love your Willamette Valley Pinot, but I don't like your Santa Rita Hills Pinot. And other customers who say just the opposite, and we always say that's a great thing. If they all tasted the same,
Then what
that
would
would
be
be
the point?
That's the worst thing somebody could say.
So you have all these wines. Which one's your favorite?
Depends on the year, honestly. Generally, I mean, we have 3 or 4 that particular vintage we like these. One of them is usually, if you were to taste them blind, you would say, this one's not as good as the others. Mm-hmm. But we know where those grapes came from. Maybe it was a tougher year. Maybe there was frost or rot, and we had to sort that out. We had to go further to get to that point. And so there's one wine that we're not objective about at all. We just know how we got there, and that's an important thing. Having said that, there are certain things from the San Lucia Highlands, places like Pizzoni, Gary's, Rosellas, that we have a very close relationship with the people that own it. Those are places that are special in our heart in a lot of ways.
So there's sentimental ties to some of these
There are
places.
sentimental ties. Yeah, Gary Pizzoni was in the winery the other day, and my son Christian, who's 10 years old, was selling candy bars for a school function, and Gary bought 40 candy bars because he likes the kid. And I mean, so that kind of thing goes on with people that you know well.
Fair enough. So it's not just an anonymous, I'm buying grapes, and there's some investment. Let me ask you this: where do you stop? You got 20 some odd. 50 single vineyard wines, and you're making Syrah. I think we've got one over there, the Novi Syrah. Mm-hmm. So you've been strictly Pinot Noir, and now you're doing. Where does this stop? How many wines can you fit into a workload?
Pretty soon. We've probably reached it. What we do have a couple of new vineyards that are coming on, but really those are ones that maybe are a case where we're replacing a vineyard, where we're trying to upgrade. So I don't know that we're really trying to increase production, increase that. What we will do, though, at some point in time is we turn around and we look and say, could this area be better if we had another Sonoma Coast vineyard, for instance? One of the places we're getting more fruit from this year is the Santa Rita Hills down in Santa Barbara County, because we have 2 vineyards that we get from down there, 2 fairly small vineyards, and it seemed like we could make a more interesting wine in the years where you don't do a single vineyard, a more interesting blend by buying grapes from a third source. So you kind of look at where the holes are in your portfolio and what you can do to make better wine, and that's when you pick something up. But it's
So-
not going to be big.
So you're not planning to go 60 vineyards, but if it happens, it happens.
If it happens, it happens. I think
Good,
the kids. Maybe.
good luck to you. Adam, thanks for coming out. It
was my pleasure.
I appreciate it. Until next time, this has been Wine Chat. Salute. Been smelling this across the table the whole time.